Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode at Advocata Studio to discuss about competitiveness, global economy, and how Sri Lanka can move to the next step when it comes to exports and business. Joining with me today is Prasad, who is from Eswaran Brothers. Prasad, welcome to Advocata Studio. Thank you very much for your time and joining with us today.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you very much for having me here today.
Prasad, first, for the benefit of our viewers, just brief us about Eswaran Brothers and the business that you are in and for how long. Just a quick introduction about yourself. So rather than me introducing more about the business that you are in, I think you are the better person who can make some interest to our viewers.
Okay, thank you so much, Dana. So basically, I'm from Eswaran Brothers Exports. We have been in the business for 60 years. 65 years, and we currently sell in about 65 countries worldwide. So starting from US to Japan to Australia, so we cover a lot of global space on that. We are predominantly a value-added tea exporter. So it's a family company, and I'm part of the family.
Excellent. Thank you, Prasad. Just wanted to first understand now when you say that you are exporting for 65 countries and Sri Lanka has always been saying that we have to be an export driven nation. And you are a family company. And how was the challenge? And can you take us through very quickly on that evolution process of that 65 years very quickly and how you really became competitive on those 65 countries, because 65 countries is no easy task.
I mean, firstly, I would just say that, we all think that Sri Lanka is a very tiny country and so much and things there. But the amount of talent, the amount of resources we have, people actually take it for granted. Otherwise, a small country like us, we sell into 65 countries. I mean, it's massive. So people actually do not appreciate the talent and the resources what we have in this country there. So as a business, I think, if I rewind back, I mean, it was actually started by my grandfather, and my uncle actually, Mr. Eswaran, started the tea business there. So this is actually a very interesting thing that he actually contributed a lot to the industry. In the 60s, 70s, everyone was exporting tea in bulk. They actually pack the tea and export in bulk, and they always felt that the value addition could be only done overseas. So he was one of the first pioneer who actually bought in a tea bag machine in. While he was telling me, he used to tell me that, the accountants and the finances, all the people were against me, saying that it is never going to work. So he was one of the first people to bring a tea bag machine there, and that completely has changed. So how we have survived 65 years, the key answer is innovation.
Excellent. So, Prasad, now tea has a long tail value chain, like from tea plucker to tea factory, and then when it comes to your value addition that you do at the tea bag. Now, what would be your advice? You mentioned about innovation, but when it comes to global competitiveness, from just exporting bulk tea to getting to tea bags, I'm sure the innovation process is still continuing. We have flavored tea. We have.
Correct, yes.
I'm not the expert, but I have seen so many variations. There's iced tea too. I think there's a lot of beverages, even in cocktails. Mocktails, now you can see the
Correct,
tea,
yes.
how shall I say, the different variations are coming in. So how is this process going through? I understand it's innovation, but is it like a very methodical decision, or whether it's like the courage, or whether it's like the investment? Where this kick coming in?
I mean, surprising you said about mocktails, because mocktails is something that we are specializing in, and that's actually taking a very good. So you do know something about tea. Again, it's a very broad thing that you could say, but I would say, of course, it's just not. It's always investment. I mean, innovation comes with investment, right? You can't just you have to have investment, but at the same time also is that, like, trends are changing so fast. Trends are changing incredibly fast. Now, for example, let's say, for example, you look at a country like, I say, Japan, one of our biggest export markets there. Um, they had time. They wanted to actually brew the tea, keep it for 3 minutes, and do on that. Now the youngsters come, they don't have 3 minutes. They just want to buy a bottle, grab it, and go on that one. So that is actually forcing us to change. There are plenty of examples you can see, like, with things like how, for example, like, cameras being, like, you had all these cameras outstacked by telephones and various other things there. So the trends are changing so fast that if you don't constantly be up with the trends, now, about a month ago, we had a tea convention. So we had like almost 800 guests and people from all the leading people in the tea there. They spoke about the industry. And they were saying one thing which actually really struck on my head is that things are changing so fast. Everything has to change along with it. Just to give another example, which is very interesting, in the US, if you see, people are having a gadget in their hand, right? And that gadget is kind of like dictating you what you should eat, have a glass of water, have that. How are you marketing your tea for that? So it's changing. So we've got to change. We've got to change, and um, the good thing is that we are on a very strong platform. Ceylon tea is known so well. I mean, like, again, like my colleagues had visited Chile. It's about nearly 22 hours by flight, and Ceylon tea is so big there. Every package they have written Ceylon, Ceylon, Ceylon. I mean, it was such an incredible feeling that people so far in South America having Ceylon. I mean, how great it is.
Absolutely. Next point that I want to discuss, Prasad. Now, Sri Lanka has been speaking about this export-driven economy for so long, and I think on apparels we have got somewhere, but now it's also moving, I think, to Bangladesh and different parts of the world. Tea, I think there are multiple thoughts. Like your company, I think Dilmas, they do quite well, but as an overall export earning, where do you see the bottlenecks, or are there any areas that we can do better? Are there any policy changes that you think that we should do to take this industry to the next level? What are the policy hindrances that you see that basically hindering your growth? Shall we discuss about that?
I mean, again, Dana, basically, like, where I want to say is that, like, say, our policies, we have been set for policies which was done years ago. So, where I feel it's quite important is that as the trends change, the policies have to be updated. Say, for example, a policy that was set in, let's say, 1960, is it going to be applicable in 2024? I think that's where we need to set on to it. And industries are changing so fast. As businesses, one of the drawbacks that we have is that how fast can we get into markets there?
What do you mean by how fast that you
How
can get
fast,
into
in the
market?
sense, like, say, for example, in a sense, like, when there's an opportunity, right? As a business, when there's an opportunity, we need to be ready to strike. And if I've hindered in terms of you have to do step one, step two, step three, step four, step five, opportunity is lost. So, as a business, where we would like is that opportunity is there, go to step five. Don't go to step one, step two. Step one, step two, step three would have been important in 1950, 1960, so on, like, but that's not important right now. So now, for example, if you look at countries like Dubai or Singapore, why do people actually go and invest there? You want to open a bank account? Done in 2 days. You want to get something set up? Done in minutes. You need some information? Just go onto the website, get everything there. So those are kind of things which is actually what we need right now if you want to go fast. Have those obstacles removed onto it. I know those obstacles. I mean, the unfortunate thing is that these obstacles have been set because of kind of some malpractice or something. So I understand why these obstacles have been set. But if you have that same thing right now, I mean, you're losing that opportunity.
Got it. So, are there any particular examples? Now, for an instance, uh, when we looked at the data, not on your value addition forte, but when it comes to productivity on tea, we have found out that the compared to other parts of the world, our tea productivity is quite low, and the incentive structure is not that good. Where people like the pluckers and the tea value chain is not very much driven to higher production and bringing down cost, and this has become a political battle not on your area but on the beginning of the value chain. So do you see as an industry any policy changes or any particular areas that has to change, except I understand the big ones like opening a bank account, registering a business, giving that opportunity, maybe the export process that you have to go through at customs, all that. But in terms of the to because it's a long value chain, because you're though you are in the tea bags, the rest of the value chain also affects your productivity. Are there anything that has been in discussion in the tea industry?
So basically, like if you look at the tea business part, right, like there are two arms. One is basically the plantation sector, and then you get the value added sector. So I come from the value added sector. So I would not be the best person to comment on that. But where I do feel there is opportunity, what it is that if you look at into the what do you call, like in terms of the structure of them, it's very sad, but unfortunately the plucker is the one which is actually like least paid compared to other people on the sector. And unfortunately, as businesses, we've also got to compete globally, right? It's not that no business wants to say that we can't do it, but unfortunately, with the structure, with the cost and everything, it is coming through there. So this is where I feel it's very important that we need to innovate and show something a speciality on that one. Currently, our production, if you so for example, if you look at tea fields in Kenya, it's like a football field, very flat. So their yield is much more better, while our yield is more of a hilly terrain. So naturally, like the output and everything comes down on that. There are talks about like replantation, what you're going to do on that. The sad fact is that after another 100 years, getting Ceylon tea is going to be a luxury. So as businesses, what we should support is that we should go and talk about like how good we are. We have certain things which is very good. We have one of the cleanest teas in the world. Now a lot of tea companies are becoming climate positive. We are looking at things on like environment. These are things that can add value to the tea. So if the customer is able to pay more, definitely the entire industry will pay more. So as businesses, what we need to do is that we need to go and stress and say like this is how we are different. Like you're buying teas from like other countries, but hey, Sri Lanka is, this good. We've got more cleaner teas, and we are climate positive. We're talking about the environment. Like they're looking at there are certain estates doing rainwater management. So those are things that we need to talk and get that more money coming into us there.
The climate point is quite important. I would like to come to that later a little bit in detail. Before that, just give us a color about like on your value addition sector. What's like, who are your main competitors? Like, what's the forex earning as a category that you bring? Not pretty much your company.
I mean, like, just to give you I mean, I don't want to get very specific,
Yeah,
but just to give you an insight, right? If you know who's the world's largest value added exporter, who would you guess would be the world's largest value added exporter?
I have no
Just give it
idea.
a guess. Just who would be the largest value added exporter is anyone who is not doing tea in bulk form
You mean in the tea,
in the world, in the world.
in the tea
In the tea
category?
category, yes.
Was it the packaging?
No, I'm saying which country I was
Ah,
asking.
okay, sorry. Dubai.
No, it's actually UK.
Okay,
So if you see a country which doesn't grow tea, they are the largest
value
value
added.
added exporter, and we are number two.
Okay,
Sri Lanka is number two in the world. So as I said, like when it comes to teas, we are ready to fight on with anybody,
right.
anybody as such, because I mean, whoever has done a lot of hard work. While we always, we say a lot of wrong things, but there's been a lot of good things that has been done through, and today we are like the second largest
So
large.
wait, so how come, I would like to know, like a non-tea growing nation, how they became the on which sector that they add the value as UK?
It's just because it's all about marketing. It's all about positioning. It's all about for example, like you drink a cup of tea every day, right? You say brand X. If I give you brand Y and I say close your eyes and drink it, you won't know whether you drank brand X or brand Y. But in your mind, you have certain associations with brand X. You buy brand X. So it's all about positioning. It's all about marketing. It's all about that. Now, if you look at, for example, coffee, we always associate Italy. Does Italy grow coffee? It's again the branding, the style. They have the various ways of the machines, the gadgets. It's that. It's that. You know. That's what makes it different. So it's all about how you push in yourself.
Interesting. So you mean just to understand a bit in detail. So UK does the branding, and in terms of
Correct.
that,
Yes.
that's where they bring the value
Yeah,
addition.
that's what they bring, the value addition, the concept, and of course the history and everything
Right.
they write onto it there.
Right. And Sri Lanka mainly brings on the on your area, like the tea bags and
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm talking about the value
value
addition.
addition process.
I'm talking about the value addition process there. So uh, it's all about creating that concept or concept like value. For example, you have a phone which is valued at this, the same phone and other features valueless. What is the thing? It's about perception.
Interesting. Now let's come to a little bit of sort of not controversial, but I think there's a debate on blending
Mm.
tea. What are your thoughts? I don't want like a right or wrong answer, but for the benefit of our viewers, what are the pros and cons? And is this a conversation? Just shed some light on
Yeah.
basically on the
So I
story.
mean, like I'm 19 years in the tea trade, right? So they've been talking on this when I was on the first year. Now 19 years, we're still talking on this. That is a problem.
Okay,
So that is a problem on that. I mean, as a country per se, like Ceylon is the pro side is that Ceylon is
strong,
it's very strong.
strong as a
It's
brand.
very strong, and it is there. So even when buyers come and say they want to pack tea bags or anything there, they choose Sri Lanka because there's a good governance here. So, for example, like, and if you want to pack some very poor teas or whatever, they know if they come to Sri Lanka, we can't do it because we are legally not allowed to do so.
Right,
But on the other hand, if you go to other countries where people can do a lot of other, because there's no regulation on that, while in Sri Lanka we have that regulation.
right. Just can you for the I think the most of our viewers may not know
Mm.
on this process. So in Sri Lanka, you have a regulatory framework that Ceylon tea that cannot be blend or mixed with any other
Yeah, I
tea.
mean, sorry, you can mix Ceylon tea with other origins. There, it's not. I mean, it is part of the process. But again, let's say what happens is that when you're having imported teas and you have it now, I mean, just to give you I don't want to get too much technical, but in a summary, let's say if I want to bring tea from another origin, I have to take that tea
That
to
means another origin,
I
you mean
mean,
another
like
country.
let's say I need to take some teas from India. I've got to go through the tea board, which governs the Sri Lankan tea industry. So I need to give to them, and they would check in terms of how the quality of the tea, how the pesticide of the tea. Because what is very important is that let it be Ceylon tea or any tea, anything goes out of Sri Lanka should be high quality.
Right,
That is the. I mean, and we should appreciate that. They want to have that, and where the concern is that if you do other origin tea, then we would be like any other country in the world, right? Like we would feel like any other country, and that protection is not there. So I think that's why there is one process against it. On the other side is that, like, unfortunately, Ceylon tea is not acceptable in all markets. Now, for example, if you look at countries like UK, one of the largest tea consumption countries, they don't prefer Ceylon teas because it's too weak for them. If you have your friends or family, they come down there, you give them Ceylon tea, they'll put 3 bags inside because they
right.
want it very strong. They put a lot of milk. If I can just give a little thing on that, if you drink your tea plain, Ceylon tea is the best. If you drink your tea with a lot of milk and things like that, then there are other origins who would do that. So where we are losing is that, like, we want to grow our business. So let's say, for example, let's say from X million you want to go like X plus two. If I just do Ceylon tea, I can't go X plus two. I probably will go like 5% here on there. How do I go into that next leap? I've got to have that. That's what the other guys are talking for. Unless you get on now. If you look at, Lipton had a plant in, I believe it was 1990s, and there was restriction of teas coming from other countries. So what they did was that they moved to Dubai, where there's no restriction, anything can come, anything can pack. That's the advantage. And we stood strong saying that no, this is Ceylon. So how you weigh that? Is that an opportunity lost, or is it something that we are protected on that? So it's a very, very sensitive kind of issue there.
So is there a way that where you can have Ceylon tea as it is, which under the regulatory framework that no blending will be done, but also there can be another category that you import, let's say from India or from Kenya, and then you blend it and export? Is there a way that you maintain
I mean,
both parallelly, or is there any?
currently you can import, but there is a framework that is required. There
Right,
is a framework, so it's not that I can't mix Ceylon with Kenyan or anything. There is a framework, as I mentioned. We need to go through T-board, follow whatever the regulatory advice, and then we are allowed to blend. But where others are talking is that, like,
you allow.
keep everything aside. You can get everything, you can do whatever. It's like being in a free trade zone. You have,
Right,
like, free trade zone. There is no restriction on what comes in as long as it goes out. So
right.
that is what the other people are asking for.
Understood. So if my data sources are right, so basically the blending mainly takes place in Dubai, right? Is it? No,
No,
is
blending.
it
I mean, again, blending is a
as in that?
is in blending blending happens in the tea industry.
Right.
It happens. So I think the question what we are looking at is that, like, how freely can other origin
Is
teas
can
come into Sri Lanka? Do you need to
correct.
go through that regulatory, or you don't need to go through that regulatory? That is where the question is.
Understood. Also, when it comes to the on competing on the global markets now, for innovation process, uh, mentioned your grandfather who, when tea is like,
My
different things.
uncle, yes, Mr. Eswaran,
Yeah,
yes,
uncle, that he bought a
a tea bag
tea
machine.
bag machine, but and afterwards, what else now required to go for exports from X to Y? Okay, let's keep the blending aside.
Mhm.
Any other innovations that is required, or any other infrastructure or ecosystem which is required, which you are working at the moment, or the industry is working at the moment?
I mean, it's again a very, very broad. I can just share with you what we are working on. Is that, like, we are working on in terms of different types of packaging. We were also one of thing is that we are the first Sri Lankan company to patent an own tea bag. So if you
Right.
see, like, the normal tea bag, these guys were done by like by Germany and Italy and all that. So we are one of the first and very proud one of the Sri Lankan companies where we patented a tea bag. It's called Tigo. So basically, that tea bag has a stick inside, so you don't need a spoon.
Right.
So this is actually an idea that we had a partner who in Australia where we developed, when people are traveling, they want a tea bag, and there's no spoon. So
Spoon.
this is a very nice tea bag. It has a wooden stick on it. You put it, and I should have bought it and come. So you put it and you stir it. So that's one of an
Right.
innovation where we're showing that, like, hey, we are one of we can do things. We don't need to depend on other guys to come with innovation. So that's one thing that we're working on, and mostly on packaging. We do a lot of work on packaging and all that. I must also say that, like, the young team that we have. I mean, again, like, we are actually blessed with very good, like, our basically our resources are very good. So, and they our college graduates, they are really good. I
Right.
mean, really, really good. I mean, when I have an opportunity that I travel around, and I see people from similar age group, and I see, like, our resources are very smart, very hardworking, and you give them concepts, they come back with so much ideas, enthusiasm, and all that. So I think, as you know, that's been a very key thing that I see. There's a big differentiation, very, very big differentiation.
Interesting. And when it comes to now, to move the industry to the completely the next stage, I'm speaking about like a leapfrog jump, like not like a gradual jump. Uh, you mentioned about certain innovations, but especially when it comes to, making it different varieties of beverages, so on and so forth. How do you see? Is it like are you going to do it, like, is it feasible to do only within Sri Lanka, or whether there has to be a collaboration, or the whether you have to expand it for different regions? How do you see it? Because I'm a little confused, because okay, you have the plantations and you have a little bit of value addition, but as you mentioned, now UK is the main value.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, they're doing the greatest value addition. So if we really wanted to take the next jump, where should we move?
I think, as I said, like, one of the concerns we have right now is that with the current policies we have, we can only go 5% year on year or something. You can't make a leapfrog jump with the current policies right now. That's pretty sure. I mean, if you look at it, like if you want to go to the next level, you've got to open up this where you're able to have, like say for example, a free trade zone where you have teas coming in with regulation, and I see like, these days, like no one, I mean, end of the day, like, as manufacturers, irrespective of what the customer, the cup of tea that you're giving is our responsibility. We give it with a lot of love, affection, and total care on that. So no one is going to misuse that thing there. So I feel like if you want to go into the next kind of stage where you want to fight on with heads on with people like in Dubai or something, there you've got to have that facility, which is actually given the current, say, I mean, again, I'm saying, given the current scenario, how do I go double in like 1 year? You need this. Of course, you can look at longer term where I can bring some sophisticated machinery, do a lot of things on that. This is happening, but it'll take time. But that's not going to take us to this one. But this one will take us immediately to the next stage very quickly.
Thank you, thank you. Wonderful insights, Prasad. Just also want to understand, when you run as a businessman, we had multiple shocks in the last
Mhm.
few years. Like you had a Easter attack, you had a
Correct. Yeah.
COVID, you had economic crisis. When you look back, how you as a business leader evolved, and like how the business basically, what was the coping mechanism of the business throughout? Because it has been a roller coaster ride. And how do you see this evolved through that when you basically look back?
Actually, if you see, like Sri Lanka has, I don't know, for something, we've always had a pattern. We've had good years, then down, then we have good years, we have down. So, and if you look at the tea industry specifically, we've always grown. We've had taxes imposed on us, we had everything thrown at us, but we've always grown. So the industry has been like very resilient. And I think as a company per se, is that like we just got a very good team. And every time when there's a crisis, we step up. We've always stepped up, and with COVID, it threw us a lot of challenges, but we embraced the challenge. They say, like, in the middle of difficulty, there's an opportunity. We are a firm believer of that. So with COVID, we started using a lot of, we went to an extent like, we even got masks and sent it out to customers who are struggling, and I think it's all about having that relationship with them, and whatever uh, there's always an opportunity in every difficulty, right? There's, if you look into deep, there's always an opportunity. And in fact, like COVID, our business grew. I guess it's applicable to most food industries. Our business actually grew, and I would just say that like we had a very good team. People still came to work, and if you look at the export sector, we didn't have the luxury of having being at home, everything that we had to report to work, because it's tea and we can't stop tea, and you've got to see tea, you've got to taste tea. So we were all at work during COVID. We were always sitting there connecting and having, you may be next room, but we can only talk through like like Google Meet or Teams or something like that. So we went through that. It was a challenging period, but we went through it. And I think what I'm really proud of, I mean, us, is that like, let it be COVID, let it be the economic crisis or anything, we didn't let anybody down. We serviced all our customers. There have been lots of very emotional stories, people walking to work, helping to find helping to find petrol, to the truck driver to take your container to the port. Lots of things happened, but we went through all this. We went through all this and came out.
um, after the crisis, there was a sort of a migration pattern took place.
Yep.
Was that impacted your industry?
Definitely, it is. I think one of the things with the economic crisis is that like people don't realize is that like now we are in a very. I mean, I think this is very important, especially like with the digital space you have, everything is flashed out so easily, and there's so much information there. I think one of the issues that with the crisis came is that like buyers were getting like a lot of negative reports, and a lot of customers, we are the only source for them. They've got hundreds of people working, and they depend on us to supply, and they depend on Sri Lanka to supply. So the challenge was that like how do you kind of like, and they are worried. They see things are happening, this is happening, what they're talking, and they're really, really worried. So that was a time where we had to really, and you have to come, so many things behind you is happening, but you got to put your face up. Sorry, you got to put your face up and say, hey, everything is okay. We are there. We're taking care of it while, we are running around for petrol and all those other things are there. But that was challenging. But, so normally what I do is that like when there's anything good about Sri Lanka, I immediately send it out to them. I don't send anything which is negative. Anything like tourist arrival up, send it out to them. Our currency is becoming stronger, send it out to them. So you got to create that positive thing to the to the customers, and generally.
Also, I think the other challenge basically the export industries face is with the currency appreciation depreciation, which has been a common question every time, like
Mm.
what could happen, and you have already invoiced them, and then you have to pay your bills here in local currency, and sometimes it depreciates or appreciates. And the second thing is on the taxes, that the tax rates change from one year to the other, from one government to the other, based on some
Mm.
policy missteps to cover up the cost. um, Give us some thought on, I mean, what would be, I know the consistency is better, but how do you see it? And if you have any case studies, like how you had to struggle or how you resolved, share some case studies if you have, especially on the taxes,
I
to
think
begin with. Yeah.
I think the taxes is where, I mean, if you see that, like, if you look at the situation, like, we've already having inflation, and then all of a sudden you're slapped with your tax. So already your money is becoming lower value. On top of that, you pay taxes. It's difficult. It is really difficult. And what we had was that, like, thankfully our board was that, like, we took the ownership to share some of it with our employees, and we said, okay, we've got to do this, but let's also share some of it. So we had to take that step
So you
according
mean
to
you share
share, in the sense like we had to increase we had to increase
the
increase
salaries
increase in
and
salaries. So we had to share that thing, because otherwise we know that end of the day, like, if your colleagues or everyone, if they're finding it difficult, then it is not sustainable there. And migration is also was quite impactful. A lot of people left, and if anyone wants to leave, you can't say, don't leave. We had to really think. But I think as business leaders, what we have to do is like give people hope. I think that's really important. That hope has to be there, and I think people don't really understand or appreciate it. But we've got such a good team of young talents with us there, and we just need to give them hope and saying that, like, there's a future here, and, like, we'll give you that we'll give you that hand holding, we'll give you that support, and you take it forward. There are people who say they're adamant saying they want to do, but that's okay, you accept. But then there is also a pool of resources that we need to kind of like,
got it. In terms of the exchange rate, how this affects, and what are the mechanisms that you have on
I think pretty
on
much like all companies is that we have to hedge. Like, we've got to hedge. We have to forecast and see, like, okay, is the dollar going to come up, come down? We've got to hedge on that. And as exporters, I mean, to be honest, like, we've had a better wave, because, from 200, it goes up to, let's say, 370. Of course, we stand to benefit. But then when 370, it comes down to 300. So it's a roller coaster. So it goes up, it goes down, we go on that. So we've just got to kind of like hedge. So always difficult, like, when we have to quote prices, we have to quote prices for spot rate for 3 months, another rate. I know it's very confusing, but that's how we have to kind of like, manage things. I mean, there's no kind of like a fixed solution for that, but you've got to be like, you've got to be very alert and say, and then take it on from there.
and there was a blanket accusation across all exporters during the crisis that they kept their money outside Sri Lanka. I think some 50 billion, some amount has been kept outside through misinvoicing, uh, and under invoicing, over invoicing. Uh, what do you have to say about it?
The honest answer is that, like, as I said, that malpractices happen everywhere. And I don't think it's just fair to say that, exporters are whatever it is there. But honestly speaking, is that like there is an industry change which is happening, right? So I don't know how feasible it is to do that. to have some money parked out, and because, like, there are so much governance there. There's banking, there's central bank. In spite of that, how do you do that? Maybe it's possible, but generally, honestly speaking, we don't do this. So I wouldn't know. But I think there are so many steps involved. A person cannot simply go and park so much money out and come through. Not in a very legitimate way.
Also, I think on the while that story is on one side, there was also a lot of restrictions from the central bank itself to convert your export
Correct. Yes.
earnings. How does it impact? Because if I mean, for any supplier, while you do the value addition, I'm sure there must be an import component which you
Yes.
require.
I mean, it because when the currency crisis happened, what happened is that people lost confidence in the rupee. So you're my supplier. You need to import, let's say, board or something. You got to purchase in dollars. So if I pay you in rupees and you can't convert that rupee into dollar, so then it becomes a problem, right? So most of the suppliers resorted to dollar payment, which was very bad. Like, we still get quotations in US dollars. So we think like, okay, we're in Sri Lanka and we're getting quotation in US dollars for local transaction, but that was the need for the day. We had to pay them in dollars so they could pay their exporters in dollars. We went through a phase. Everyone was quoting in dollars there, but now I think the confidence is there. We see a lot of transactions happening in rupees now.
Still, that conversion rule is still there, or is it?
It is there. The conversion rule is there, and I think that they're looking even to make it more harder right now. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it is still there. Yes.
I would like to, in the final part of the conversation on the sustainability
Hmm.
matter that you brought out, like there's big conversation about global warming and sustainability and weather patterns changing. How, as an industry, what measures that is coming up when it comes to looking at that sustainability point of view?
No, I should just share with you one of the professors, I think in Kandy, who at the tea convention spoke. He was saying from in Sri Lanka from 1963, every year the temperature has gone up by 0.01 to 0.03 degrees in Sri Lanka. So you fast forward 2024, how warmer it has become through. And there is clear evidence right now. If you see, like, India, Sri Lanka are facing crop shortage, which is again resorted to climate change. So these days, it's not a topic to talk to feel good. It is actually we are facing the brunt of this. And as an agricultural industry, this is very, very big concern on that. How we are navigating it, we are speaking to buyers. Now you've heard like a lot of industries, they say you should support, for example, fair trade, they call it. That means you're ensuring that all the workers are being paid out and everything like that. So we basically, as a company, we are promoting and say, like, in terms of environment, we are one of the first companies to be carbon neutral certified. My cousin, Mr. Subramaniam, was the vice chairman of the company. He thought of this like almost like 10 years ago. So we were one of the first pioneers in carbon neutral. And we are basically advocating to customers right now, saying, look, let us buy tea from this plantation because they are climate positive. Trying to educate them, and because it's our responsibility that we need to communicate these to the customers and gain that price for them. It's not like if you treat us as a commodity, things are going to collapse. So we've got to take the initiative. We've got to tell customers, look, work with these gardens. These gardens are doing well. Encourage them to kind of like do on that. If you see, for example, like popular brands like like Unilever and all that. If you see the pack, they have a frog logo, which is Rainforest Alliance. So they drive the market, saying everyone needs to go that, and they were so like that. We've got to take leadership to give those kind of things to the market and saying, look, uh, buy these from them because they're really taking care of the environment. They're doing this, they're doing that. So that is the only way that we are going to actually change it. And also in terms of packaging, there's a lot of packaging which is like plastic free, biodegradable, recyclable. Now, Europe especially, like they want, there's a law in which is going to be coming in 2030 where they want almost all materials to be in a recyclable format or a biodegradable format there. So we've got to change.
So, just out of curiosity, so how, what are the sourcing markets for this biodegradable packaging? Is it manufactured in Sri Lanka, or you
Yeah,
have?
I mean, there are something you have it in Sri Lanka, you get it overseas there. It is available. There are a lot of Sri Lankan companies also stepping up, and they are giving us options right now. Look, we've got this
Hmm.
solution, we've got that. Actually, like in Sri Lanka, there's unfortunately no paper, there's no thing, so it's all imported and being processed here. But there are suppliers who are catering to that.
Also on the sustainability front, like what the competitors are doing.
I guess everyone needs to follow it. Otherwise, you'll be out. I mean, it again depends on market to market, right? Like if you're an exporter catering to Europe market, if you don't have sustainability, you don't have a chance. But on the other hand, if you're working on certain markets where it is not very important, you can survive to a period of time. But when you're looking at a global aspect, I mean, irrespective of markets, let's say, let it be. But I think as an individual, as a company, this is something that you need to really really take care of it, and it is not like anymore a catchword. It is happening.
Prasad, we had the last stage of our conversation. While we have optimism, I mean, you mentioned about how the industry can grow. Of course, for a leapfrog jump, there has
Mm,
to be some reforms needs to take
mm.
place. But overall, when you see on the other side the risk factors, what are the risk factors that you see on short term, medium term to the industry, given the current
I mean,
context?
it's basically I think the main thing I feel, Dana, the risk is that, like, it's all about, I would say, is confidence. Now, for example, the IMF, two parts have come. The third part, though it's not very significant, but if it doesn't come automatically, there will be, like, you know, a risk, like, okay, then our interest rates become higher. So it's all about, I would say, right now, we are in a zone where we don't know what's going to happen. I think after the elections, we probably have more clear policies coming through. But what I feel right now, which I'm concerned, is like, uh, we've put a lot of effort to bring the confidence up and put Sri Lanka again, where in terms of a lot of things there. So we've got to kind of like move forward and not bring it down. So I would say that getting these things right is kind of like very important to us.
Also, Prasad, any advice that there's a parliamentary election coming up, and hopefully there'll be another local government election and probably another provincial council election. So there's list of elections that is lined up. Any advice or any thoughts for the new policymakers that?
I mean, I would say, like, the main thing is challenge the existing policies. Is that currently applicable in this environment? I think it's the policy shouldn't be kept just because someone did this years ago. They should kind of challenge this. And the second thing is that when a policy is set, it should be adhered to, because I think that's where it's very important. When you look at countries like Singapore, Dubai, I mean, why people go there, because their legal framework, their policies are so strong that it is basically attracting investment there. So I think that's very critical, that we've got to show the world that, like, we've got policies and we adhere to these policies, and we don't. I think one of the things which is very, like, hard for me when someone asks me is that you have one policy and then 1 month later that policy is changed, then another policy. I get these messages like, today price of potatoes have gone up by, then, how are you encouraging an importer to buy anything, because you just get a text and say tomorrow it's going up like this. Those things are, like, very wrong. So when you stick on to the policy, have it for a longer period of time, give confidence to people that, like, this is the policy in Sri Lanka, and this is idea too, and anyone, and from top to bottom, this policy is followed. Then you will see things. I mean, stability will be the key thing there.
Thanks, Prasad. Anything that I didn't ask and you want to respond, or any final
No,
thoughts?
nothing. I think the only thing I would basically like to kind of add on to it is that, like, while there's so much of negativity about things like that, there is hope in Sri Lanka, and our team, our talent is incredibly big. So one thing I would like to say is that, like, for the generation coming up and everything there, don't look at just running away from Sri Lanka.
Stay and fight
Yeah, they
and
stay and fight. It's our country. We've got to stay and fight. And definitely, if you see in history, we've had a lot of, from the war to things on that, and we've always come up. So don't think of like, exiting is the only option. There are lots of good companies here that who are looking for resources, that who wants to kind of expand. So capitalize them and give a hand rather than just running away.
Thank you very much, Prasad, for joining us,
Thank you,
and
Dana.
excellent insight. So we had time to discuss about tea and how the policy framework mainly affects this entire industry, especially tea being one of our main exports in our export basket. If you haven't watched Prasad, he also speaks in Tamil language on our Advocata Kural. So please watch. And this is the English version of it on a different dimension about the business and the industry and the tea sector and what reforms that we need. And thank you very much,
Thank you,
Prasad, and
Dana.
wishing you all the very best for the business. And I think the message is clear: do not leave and stay and fight, because we have, as Sri Lankans, have to somehow work towards taking Sri Lanka out of this mess, and it's our
Correct.
responsibility. And of course, the times may not be easy, but of course, difficult times, as Prasad said, also creates opportunities and create leaders and heroes who really will fight for the country that we all aspired for. Thank you very much, Prasad, again, and thank you very much for watching us. And please subscribe Advocata Institute, and you will be able to see some snippets on our multiple social media platforms, Instagram to Facebook to TikTok. So please follow us, and we are looking forward to take this policy conversation forward for the betterment of Sri Lanka. Stay tuned.